Whoa. Test, test.
Welcome everybody to EAC Constitution Day Assembly. I am Matthew Norcross, your guys' ASEAC Vice President. We'd like to first give a thanks to the EAC Gila Monster Band for playing the opening music. It was fantastic, so everyone give them a round of applause. And before we'd like to go on, we'd like to say that we do have door prizes. So whenever you came in, you were given a raffle ticket. Make sure you stay till the end to see if you won a prize. We'd like to recognize some of our guests and dignitaries. We're starting off with President Haney. Thank you for coming. And also, and we're going to go ahead and have the Star Spangled Banner played by the EAC Gila Monster Band, and that's going to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance given by your ASEAC Secretary, Maddie Sellers.
All right, and please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Thank you everyone for participating. So we're going to go ahead and introduce our guest speaker today, Judge Michael Peterson. Let me go ahead and get his bio. So, Judge Michael D. Peterson was born and raised in Salt Lake City, Utah. He received his Bachelor's of Arts degree in Finance and Political Science from the University of Utah. He earned his Doctor of Jurisprudence from Baylor University Law School. He practiced law primarily in Graham and Greenlee counties from 1999 to 2015 in the areas of mediation, family law, criminal law, and civil matters. He was appointed to be the presiding judge of the Graham County Superior Court by Governor Doug Ducey in September 2015. He was elected in 2016 and re-elected in 2018. Judge Peterson and his wife Karen have been married for 25 years and are the parents of 5 wonderful daughters. He has coached high school football for 10 years. Judge Peterson is also a cancer survivor. I'd like to welcome you on up, Judge.
Thank you and good morning. Can you hear me okay? There we go. Now, I first of all would like to tell you how grateful I am to be here. I'm going to go ahead and lower that if that's okay. When I walked in the front door, they were gracious enough to give me some EAC swag. I had a really boring looking mask on, and I think they felt sorry for me. So I've got this really nice one now, so I really appreciate that. I had the opportunity to visit with you for a few minutes today about the Constitution. When Keith Alexander called me and asked if I would be available, I said, of course, I will rearrange my schedule to be available. How much time am I going to have? He told me I would have 20 minutes in which to make a presentation. And I asked him, how was it that I was going to be able to make a presentation in a mere 20 minutes of a topic and a subject of such complexity and importance as the Constitution? He told me, I don't care, that's your problem. Just don't be boring. So I want you to understand that Keith has your back. I know the administration has your back. They don't want me to be boring. I'll do my best. Now, I want to talk to you today about the United States Constitution. It is the oldest and the shortest Constitution in use in the world today. It's a mere 4,535 words. In contrast, the Constitution of India is 146,385 words. Since the adoption of the United States Constitution, more than 220 constitutions throughout the world have been adopted. The average lifespan, if you will, is 19 years. And more than 10% of those constitutions have lasted less than 1 year. Kind of reminds me of a Kardashian marriage, right? The fact is, thank you for that. Just as a brief aside, I have 4 daughters that go to this school, and when I told them I was giving this presentation, they said to me, Dad, we're really excited. Please, one thing, no dad jokes. And I told them I can't help it. Sometimes dad jokes, dads amongst us, you'll know what I'm talking about, they just come up. They just happen. And so please forgive me if any do come up. My poor kids are probably going to be the ones wearing masks with like eyes cut out, like the bank robber ones, because they're going to be embarrassed after I'm done, because I have a slew of these dad jokes at the ready, I assure you. But the reality is our Constitution has survived the test of time. More than 233 years, in fact, to this very day, the United States Constitution has been in existence. In 1791, the French also had their first constitutional convention. They adopted their first constitution, and it too lasted less than 1 year. So what is it about the Constitution? Why has it withstood the test of time? You might know a little bit about the background and the history. About before we had the Constitution, the various states were governed by this instrument, the Articles of Confederation. But the document itself was wholly inadequate to the task at hand. 13 independent, separate states got together and formed a very, very weak government. They didn't like what the King of England had done. They didn't like what they felt was the tyrannical exercise of powers by Parliament. They felt deprived of their rights as Englishmen. They didn't want to go back to that. And so they came up with this system. The problem with it, however, it was wholly inadequate to the governing of 13 independent states. They couldn't tax, they couldn't print money, they couldn't even enforce the laws that they passed. And so there was really, truly no other way for them to be able to grow in a united sense without scrapping the Articles of Confederation and starting entirely new. Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. So there were 70 delegates from 13 states. Rhode Island was the only state that never sent delegates to the Constitutional Convention. May 25th, 1787, these men assembled at this very place in Philadelphia. If you've ever had a chance to go there, I'd strongly encourage it. It's a beautiful building, but what transpired inside has truly changed the world. These men were by no means shrinking violets. They were strong, independent men. Time doesn't permit us to talk about the unique talents that each brought to the table. These were educated, intelligent men. They were also very determined to see a form of government that suited their practical purposes. They met for 115 days. That's it, during a hot summer in 1787. The Constitutional Convention almost broke up. We almost didn't have the Constitution because there were a lot of differences of opinion, but most particularly, what form of government would we have? Next slide. There were two main problems. The problem was from the standpoint of larger states, such as Virginia, which were large in population. These states wanted representation in two houses of Congress, known as a bicameral arrangement, and they wanted it to be done proportionally. The more people you have in your state, the more representation you get. Well, if you're in Virginia or Pennsylvania or New York, that makes a lot of sense. However, there were representatives from smaller states, such as New Jersey, who decided, wait a minute, we don't want that. We're a relatively small state, and you'll run over the top of us. We want one legislative body and everyone to have an equal vote. One state, one vote. This almost derailed the Constitutional Convention before it ever got started. But the reality is we can learn something today that's very valuable from these wise men. They decided, instead of simply disengaging and going their separate ways, that they would pay the price to understand the perspective of the other. I wish we could do that better today. There are various people who have strong and sincere views that might be different than yours or mine. That's okay. We've been there before. We've handled it. And this is a great example of how to handle it. They got in a room and they said, you know, you have some points that I think you might be able to, that are valid. We have some points that we think you might think are valid. What they came up with was a brilliant compromise. Not compromise in a dirty word. That word sometimes now seems like a dirty word. They didn't compromise the principles, the things that were most important to them, the greater good, they were able to continue to latch hold of by the adoption of a compromise that allowed for a bicameral, a House and a Senate. Also, the House would have proportional representation. The larger number of people that live in your state, the more representatives you get. And then an upper chamber, the Senate, which would have 2 senators, equal representation for the states. It was for that we were able to move forward. And I would like to plant a seed that I will come back to in a few minutes about today, 233 years later. How can we confront some of the challenges that we find in our society today? Is it through angry discourse, through social media, sharing white-hot memes with like-minded friends? Or is it through sitting down and engaging and understanding? Maybe the other side might have a valid point. Is there a way we might be able together to work to find a better solution? Next slide. So these men, over the course of 115 days, came up with a document that they all felt was suitable. Did they think it was perfect? By no means did they. I don't think a single person walked out of there feeling like this was exactly what they had in mind. But for the greater good, they decided it was best to move together forward in a united way. There were 42 present. 3 didn't sign. Elbridge Gerry, George Mason, Edmund Randolph. Their primary concerns had to do with the fact there wasn't a Bill of Rights that set forth specific rights, and they were worried that the government would become too powerful and start to take away the rights that they had. Again, this is just a few years removed from the Revolutionary War. The wounds of the revolution, both literally and figuratively, still remained. They were concerned. They were all 3 very principled men. They were good men. They felt they couldn't go along. The main reason, as mentioned, was because they felt that the government would become too ambitious. In response to that, James Madison wrote, "It must be that our system of government creates a circumstance under which ambition must be used to counteract ambition." They came up with 3 branches. You might remember this: a legislature, an executive or president, and then courts. That was designed to protect people, that there would be some measure of competition and overlap and a checks and balances system. Also, there would be what's called federalism, that there would be both state and federal protections that people would have. The idea was to help people to be able to pursue their interests, to be able to live. Let's go ahead and next slide. I know you can't see this, but for your benefit, on the left are the signatures. On the right are depictions of each one of those that signed. I would encourage you, if you ever have time, to be able to take a moment, maybe randomly choose one, because you're going to find that there is not a dullard in the bunch. They were principled and intelligent men. Perfect? No, by no means, in fact. But they set forth the Constitution that has allowed us to be able to enjoy some of the privileges that we are able to enjoy to this very day. Next slide. Let's go to the next one. Go ahead and the next slide. All right. This is a chair that was used by George Washington as he sat presiding over the Constitutional Convention. It's a beautiful chair. It's hand done, and it exists to this very day. And I wish I had the skill necessary to be able to create a chair of that beauty. Next slide, if you will. At the very top, you can see that there is a sun. Washington sat in this chair over the course of the deliberations of the Constitutional Convention, and Benjamin Franklin, at the end, after the signatures were placed upon the document, he stated, "I have often looked at the sun behind George Washington on the chair without being able to tell whether it was a rising or setting sun. Now I know that it is a rising sun." After the signatures were affixed to the document, Benjamin Franklin emerged from the Constitutional Hall. The proceedings were held in a very quiet fashion, behind closed doors. The Founding Fathers knew that if word leaked out as to some of the different opinions that were being solicited and the ideas that were being put forward, that it might frustrate their ability to find common ground. So they did this very much behind closed doors. That was on purpose. And as Franklin emerged from the hall, a very prominent socialite asked him, "What manner of government have we? A monarchy or a republic?" You see, traditionally, kings had ruled, despots, tyrants had ruled the people. The question was, are we going to rule and govern ourselves in a republic? Next slide. This is his response: "A republic, if you can keep it." That is our charge today from Benjamin Franklin, 233 years later, this very moment that took place. We have the responsibility to keep the republic. Next slide. After the Constitution was signed, it still had to be adopted by the states. Just a few months later, in December of that same year, Delaware was the first state. Then a succession of states until the 9th state, which was New Hampshire, on June 21st, 1788. Rhode Island was the last to adopt it 3 years later. And so what happened on that day was most assuredly a remarkable event. 115 days, the end product. Next slide. This is a depiction. I know it's hard to see, but this was kind of the social media back in the day. Cartoons. This was published in a newspaper in Connecticut, which preceded the vote for that state to adopt or not the Constitution. They eventually, of course, did. But this is a depiction of what they would have looked at. This is their social media of the day, printed in newspapers and disseminated widely. Next slide. George Washington wrote a letter to his friend Lafayette in France, where he said that it was little short of a miracle that the Constitution was created and agreed upon by these men. And that is most assuredly the case. I can promise you, having studied this process, nothing short of a miracle, maybe understating it. It was a miracle, I submit. Next slide. John Adams, who at the time didn't participate because he was serving as an ambassador to England, stated, "The Constitution is the greatest single effort of national deliberation that the world has ever seen." Next slide. You may be wondering, why do we even need a constitution? Why would it be that we need to have a series of principles that we've established our country upon? I think this response by James Madison, who was the father of the Constitution as well as the fourth president, if men were angels, no government would be necessary. Can I get an amen on that? You guys agree? All right. The fact is that we do need to hold ourselves accountable. We do need some measure of protection, both with the government's assistance as well as, quite frankly, from the government. And that's the brilliance of the system that was created. Next slide, please. This is the preamble to the Constitution. Does anybody have it memorized? I was trying to memorize it and I just haven't had time. I've got somebody that's memorized it. That's fantastic. If I had a microphone, I'd run it down to you and have you say it. I'm going to read it because I know the print is a little bit small. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish the Constitution for the United States of America. Perhaps the most beautiful prose I have ever heard. The part I want to focus on, and our posterity. That's our job, yours and mine, today, to continue the principles that are embodied in the Constitution. Next slide, please. Ronald Reagan said it better than I ever could have, that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It didn't pass to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day, we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States where men were free. Next slide. John F. Kennedy. Only an educated and informed people will be a free people. The ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of all. So my suggestion to you, especially those of you that may be students, if you feel disenfranchised, if you feel that there's nothing in it for you, I can respect those feelings. I don't agree, but I can respect them. We live in a very tumultuous time. We do. And ignoring that would do us no good. It is a difficult time. 2020 has been a tough year in a lot of ways. But I respectfully submit to you that the way you can have your voice heard is to register to vote. And if you register, get educated. If you're not registered, get registered, and in any case, get educated and participate. I assure you that collectively we can make a difference. But if you don't do anything, where's your right to complain? If you don't take the steps necessary to get involved, and that can be tough. I'm in the public arena. There are times, especially some of our friends in social media, that perhaps don't understand maybe a particular court case over which I'm presiding. Maybe they don't understand the true measure of the facts. They don't understand the circumstances and will express opinions that sometimes are very, very negative. That's okay. It would be better that they were educated, but I've never taken offense and I never will if someone decides they want to be critical of a decision I've made. That's okay. We live in a country that allows for that. We should expect that. And I respect when people do. Next slide. This has been stated in various iterations, but Calvin Coolidge, doubters do not achieve, skeptics do not contribute, cynics do not create. We all probably fall into one or more of those categories every so often, but I submit to you that today, 233 years later, to the very moment when the Constitution was being signed by those men, that we have an obligation and a duty not to become a doubter, a skeptic, or cynic. Participate, be involved, have your voice heard, get involved in local politics, get involved in some way that edifies, that creates. It's easy to sit, if ever you've sat in I mentioned in my bio, I don't know if anybody heard that I've coached football for 10 years, and there was a meme I saw that was really, really important as a coach. And the question was involving whether parents would be in the stands because of COVID. And there was a concern that maybe the parents wouldn't be in the stands. And a somewhat sarcastic meme came out that said something to the effect of, well, how in the world are the coaches going to know what they're doing is wrong if they don't have the parents in the stands yelling at them, telling what they're doing is wrong? It's easy. It's easy to criticize. It's easy to complain. I got a 16-year-old kid who's scared out of his mind playing quarterback, and people are yelling and screaming at him. They can yell and scream at me all day long. I could care less. But that's really tough because it doesn't do anything to help. And so, again, doubters, skeptics, and cynics don't do anything to create, to edify, and to make things better. Last slide, please. All right. Benjamin Franklin, the great wise man. The more I've learned of him and his life, the more I appreciate his wisdom. He was 81 years old. He was so old and decrepit at the time that he actually had to sit in a chair, and he was kind of taken out some of the time because his health would not allow for him to walk. He could walk with the use of a cane some of the time. Some of the time he was so incapable of doing that, he had to be actually carried in and out. But this great man told us the only thing more expensive than education is ignorance. I have 4 children that go here presently, and my oldest daughter, who's at the U of A, went here. And I can attest to the fact that education is expensive, okay? I've got 5 kids in college, I've got one at the U of A. Education is expensive, but it pales in comparison to the price of ignorance. Be educated. Take advantage of this great time to be alive. Young people, you have no idea what it's like to live without the internet. When I presented this message to you today, I had the benefit of resources at a click of a mouse. Back when I was your age, I had to go to like an encyclopedia. And if you don't know what that is, Google it, okay? I had to go to an encyclopedia to figure out what in the world all of this meant. You live in an incredible time. Don't limit yourselves in any way. Don't be small-minded. It is hard, and I can respect that, but don't fall into the trap of feeling you can't make a difference, because you can. Every one of these people started out just like you, as a young person with dreams and aspirations. I encourage you in the strongest terms to live the very best lives that you can. I want to tell you how grateful I have been. You've been a wonderful audience. This has been a great honor for me to come and be able to visit with you for a few minutes today. I ask you to please get involved. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
First of all, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank our students for coming today and participating as we celebrate and commemorate the Constitution of the United States of America on Constitution Day. Second, I would like to thank all of you who are watching virtually through our streaming channel. Thank you for participating with us this day. And third, thank you, Judge Peterson, and your wife, Karen, for coming. We have something that we'd like to present to them to thank them for participating and giving us this excellent presentation on the Constitution. First of all, I have to tell on Mrs. Peterson just a little bit. She is an alumnus of EAC. She went to school here a few years ago with me. We were together here at EAC, so thank you, Karen, for coming. So with that, now, for Judge Peterson, we have, in addition to a bag of EAC goodies, we have an EAC Gila Monster purple tie. Now, Judge, I know that you didn't get a degree here from EAC, but we're going to now claim you as one of our own. You are now an EAC alumnus, and we want you to wear this tie proudly because, remember, purple goes with everything. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Alrighty, guys, we'd like to say thank you one more time to Judge Michael Peterson. Everyone give him a round of applause for speaking us today. Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and start with the drawing for the door prizes, but before we do, we'd like to reiterate one point that Judge Peterson did make, and that was to please register to vote. And once you register, please educate yourselves, and then please get out to the polls and vote. Make your voices heard. So we're going to go ahead and start with the door prizes now. Let's see. The first prize is going to be the Roku Express, and that is going to be given out to 656-808. 656-808. You gotta go for the next one. Awesome. And next we have this magic mount for mobile devices. You put it on your car and it connects directly to your phone. You don't have to hook it up or anything. It's magnetic. And that goes to 656-829. Anybody? We got it? There we are. Those ones together. Alrighty, and now we have two boxes of the multicolored LED lights. They're 6.5 feet each, and that one is going to go to 656-821. Nice. Just make sure that's our color or number. Then we have some walkie-talkies here. They have a range of, where's the range at? Up to 2 miles, it says. All righty. So we have 656-825. Some walkie-talkies. Alrighty, and next we have this Baby Boom XL Alltech Lansing speaker. It's Bluetooth, and I believe it is waterproof as well, dirt-proof and snow-proof. And that goes to 656-759. Nice. Alrighty, everyone. So that concludes the door prizes. We are going to have Judge Michael Peterson and his wife Karen out in the lobby if anybody would like to speak to them. And again, we'd like to thank you all for showing up. We really appreciate it.